Biomutant is an open-world action role-playing game developed by Swedish developer Experiment 101 and published by THQ Nordic. It has been in development for a really long time and first showed its head around 2017. It is a hugely ambitious game blending open-world mechanics with melee and ranged combat, throw in a morality system, RPG loot elements, crafting and a diverging choice of dialogue options, and you have some phenomenal potential. Not to mention the truly stunning visual art style, direction and character design, and it's pretty obvious why this game was on my most anticipated games list of 2021. Did it fulfill my desires, or was it a gobbledygook on the umba chumper of the swiggle dick? What am I on about? God knows, to be honest, but if you played the game you probably know what I mean.
You've reached the end of the line. Bet you can find Choo Choo here.
Pretty clearly the game is stunning visually, an absolute candy-coloured children's pop-up book of a game brought to life by the fantastic art team at 101 Studios. The style and design of almost every character here will put a smile on your face. The game appeals to your inner child. The enemy designs are both wonderful and hilarious in equal measure. All the main characters in the story have great personality to them. Though the cutscenes are extremely rough around the edges, invoking some classic 90s cutscenes with those stiff animations, this can ruin the immersion at times, but overall I thought this was a delightful game from a visual perspective. There's a huge amount of originality and creativity on display in the visual design of the game. It runs beautifully. I was playing at 2K at full settings on an LG C9 TV and man, the game world was something. Audio-wise, the music does a great job of matching the tone of the story. I'll expand on that in a minute, but I really enjoyed not only the music but the narration as well. Now, I am well aware that the narration will not be for everyone.
Toxanol built vessels called arks to save themselves from the impending doom.
But it did work for me on a personal level. He basically acts as a kind of translator for all the animals in the world, and there is enough enunciation in his voice to keep it kind to the ears. I do though have to highly criticise the sound during combat. I honestly can't remember the last time I played a game that did such an awful job of recreating the feedback and impact of punching someone in the face or slicing someone with a massive sword.
Flying fists.
And that ultimately leads to the combat feeling very hollow and unsatisfying in the end.
There are few records of the chain of events that led to the big apocalypse eons ago, but it's clear the world wasn't prepared for how recklessly the Toxanol Corporation would make its mark on the world. Their rare earth mining and nuclear industries generated tons of waste, and without consideration for the future, they dumped it all in landfills until they ran out of space. That's when they made the big mistake.
The underlying narrative of Biomutant is one about pollution and humanity's destruction of the planet, as well as a lot of karmic narrative around forgiveness and letting go of your past. Though I did find a lot of the writing quite profound at times, sometimes even moving, eventually it becomes quite obvious that none of these conversations lead anywhere or actually really mean anything. Yes, there is a lot of sound bites about life, your journey and the memories we keep sacred, and for the most part it worked. However, it can begin to wear thin by the end, especially the mumbo jumbo duffer puffer spiggly gaggly blue blocks.
Finally, Goop is almost done with the Goo Glide, a machine able to ride the waves of the surf all the way out to the Porky Puff at the end of the route to the southeast.
Macca packa, acca wacka, nika macca moo. Macca packa, appa yakka, ika acca oo.
The game lays out very early what the story was, and I kept expecting there to be more, but there wasn't. I mean, literally, the story is told to you at the start, you do what it says and it's over. The extra bits thrown in, such as regarding the Ark and the fortresses, just feel really tacked on. But again, I liked the core delivery of the story, I liked what they tried here and the kind of vibe they tried to instill in the game. Sometimes it did feel like a lot of the dialogue was there just for dialogue's sake though. Overall though, I did like it. Oh boy, okay, look. Before I begin on this tirade, I really wanted to love Biomutant. It was one of my most anticipated games of this year, and god damn it, I was excited for this game. You can even look back at my anticipated games of 2021 and you'll see it's right there. Look, everything in this game looks fantastic, and it does look fantastic. But man, for as good as it looks, it plays equally as badly. I have to begin with the camera and the lock-on, or the lack of lock-on. Half the time you are literally this guy. You are fighting against the camera more than you are fighting the enemies. The amount of times I checked the settings to see if I'd missed the lock-on setting or could change the camera settings and found nothing because there wasn't anything there. This is just the way it is. Often the best course of action is to just shoot everything from distance, because I'll be damned if it lets you do any combos of any sort while actually looking at the enemy you're trying to hit. Add to this that the rifles are just so powerful. Why would you even bother trying to be Martin Scorsese with the camera while trying to be Bruce Lee with your combos, when you can just shoot stuff by keeping on of R2. The camera and lock-on here are criminally bad and put you off investing more time and energy into the game. However, when it does work, it feels good. Yeah, good, but the combos are identical across all the weapons. XXY, right trigger, Y, jump twice, right trigger. There you combos, there you go. That's the whole game right there. And what that means is that the weapons don't play differently. You're basically just doing the same thing on every weapon. And for every one fight that you pull off with actually being able to hit the enemy and see them, there's about 4 or 5 where it's just all over the shop. On top of that, I mean, man, who designed these combat sound effects? I know I've touched on it before, but did they forget to pay the guy? Did they offend him? I mean, why isn't there no oomph in these attacks? I mean, it's literally saying oomph and whoop on the screen, but there's no actual sound. It's just lacking in weightiness. It just all feels so weightless. The combo system to build up super doesn't work half the time because you're not actually hitting the enemies with your moves. The super itself is, well, just underwhelming. It doesn't sound great. The parry and launch combos are nigh on impossible to pull off consistently, due to both poor camera and an extremely tight timing window that seems to be in complete contrast to the ridiculously easy game difficulty, even on hard. The crafting system looks amazing, but there's just no need to even use it. Having elements on your weapon or upgrading them is just pointless. It's fun to get the upgrades and it's nice to make your character look cool with weapons that glow, but the gear just doesn't do anything. I mean, it's all just so empty. Talking about empty, why is there no damn enemies in this world? I mean, you literally walk for miles and there's nothing. Like, literally nothing. And I've not even begun on the game structure, which is go to one of the World Eaters, find your friend who is building a machine to help you defeat the World Eater. That mechanic always needs A, parts, B, some weird cute animal to shoot at the World Eater. Find both of those, normally a million miles away, fast travel back, go fight the boss. Initially this is fun, hell it was actually exciting for the first 1 or 2, oh man, but it wears thin towards the end, let me tell you. The underlying point here is that the combat is not good, and so there's no way you're going to trek halfway around this world to have a handful of bad fights that have terrible controls to complete a bunch of side quests. The combat doesn't inspire that type of effort, and that is the underlying issue with Biomutant. The quests are super generic, the game is carried completely by its artistic direction. There's also a lot of copy paste here. I mean, I can't say this for fact, I haven't actually checked it pixel by pixel, but I'm pretty certain every fortress is copy and pasted to the point that every box and every NPC in every fortress is in exactly the same position, and I mean exactly the same place. Yes, the combat basically is very rinky-dinkly on the crickety crank, if you catch my drift. There's a class system which, in the grand scheme of things, makes very little difference because the combat plays so badly and all the combos are identical. The perks make some changes to the overall damage you can do or your quality of life of your character, but generally they mean nothing because the difficulty in the game is trivial.
Feeling about this, it goes all the way down to the stomach. Start like a snack, and you'll end up with a ride down the intestinal canal. That's too close to the end station. Better move up. Look at you, all pooped out. From this point on, there's no way forward but going back in.
For For those who don't know, Biomutant was made by a team of 20, and it really shows, in good and bad ways. You cannot review a game and let them off with things just because it was made by a group of 20 people. That was a decision they made as a studio to make the game with a small group, and it has positives because it's really tightly knit. There's a clear focus on the style of the game and the direction the game was going to go in. Despite the criticisms I have stated through this review, I still actually had a good time weirdly playing Biomutant. It has so much charm that carries the whole game. Sadly, however, the combat is too poor to ever make you want to genuinely engage with it. It is a world begging to be explored with a combat system that is a pain to use. It's like walking through quicksand, but for a million miles. No matter how beautiful the surroundings, you will just get tired of it eventually. With a combat system that worked properly, more variety in combos, a lock-on system and a world with more enemies with more unique attack patterns, this could have been something special. The gobbledygook speak is endearing, as is the karmic mantra running through the game. The pro-environment message is well implemented, and the art direction, character design and world are a child's adventure book come to life. It's such a shame that the pages that are in this book are so tattered and unreadable. I just wish the combat and camera were as good as the visuals. If they were, things could have been so biddly-doop different. You know what I mean. Overall, I'm feeling a very deflated and disappointing decent to strong 6 for Biomutant. And that's my review. What did you think? Have you played it? Agree or disagree? Let me know. I think this is a game that might be quite divisive because it really warms the heart. You want to love it, but as a reviewer, you just have to break down the component elements of a game and realize that, you know, it's just not very good at its core. That's my review. Take care. Thank you so much for listening. If you can hit us a like, helps me out a ton. Stick around. Take care. Peace. Stay safe.